back to the Prolific Creations podcast. I'm joined here with Kevin Chong, a professional musician and creative. So, welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Lucas, for having me. Appreciate it, man.
Of course, thank you for being here. So, just dive right in. Can you tell us what it is that you do and what got you to where you are now?
Yeah, so I am a professional musician. I play drums, as you can see right behind me. I am in my studio space, which is my garage out here in Ontario, California. It's a little warm today. California weather is extremely. Would bipolar would that be a good term to use? Because it
Oh, for
decides to be
sure.
one way one day and then a completely different way another day. It was raining this past weekend. Now it's super hot, and i.e., we're typically about 10 degrees hotter than everywhere else,
Right.
because of the mountains and the heat out here. But yeah, I've been doing professional music since, I'd say, I like to say I've been playing since I was 8, but I consider myself, when I started doing professional music, was 2012, only because I started doing my taxes that year. So once you start paying taxes, like, yeah, this is actually a legit thing I'm doing. I'm not going under the table. I'm doing, paying Uncle Sam. So I've been doing it since 2012 officially, which is what, 12 years ago. I started playing when I was about 8 years old, and I've primarily just stick to drums. I do a little bit of percussion, which is congas, timbales, and bongos. But yeah, I've been doing music since I was 8, and then I went to school and got my bachelor's in drum performance at a school called Cornell School of Music out in Los Angeles. The school is actually called Shepherd University, but the music program was called Cornell School of Music. So I was there
Yeah.
from 2014 till 2017 and got my bachelor's in drum performance. And since then, I've just been doing, still professional music, corporate events. I play for different artists out in the Los Angeles area. I work for different wedding agencies out this way. And so, yeah, been doing music about that long, so it's been great.
Awesome. No, yeah, awesome. So I know you said you kind of started that creative outlet right around when you were 8. Can you kind of tell us just what inspired you to, I guess, lean towards drum, right? Usually, when people do start getting into music, it's like guitar or ukulele, or in schools now, it's I think the recorder that the first instrument that they start you off on. But what got you into drums?
I'd say so. My dad was a huge influence in me getting into drums. So when I was a little boy, my dad, my family's from Peru, so music is a big part of our culture. Our family. And it's funny because Peru has its own styles of music. We have lando, we have a style called festejo. I'm sure you kind of familiar. Maybe if you've talked to Israel Chambi, he's talked about these things, and the food is incredible. That's something I'm always going to say. If you haven't had a chance, you have to try Peruvian food. But my dad was a huge salsa fanatic. So my dad had these instruments at home. He had a cowbell, bongos. I don't think he had congas. I think it was just bongos and cowbell. And I remember he would throw these huge parties. He loved throwing parties, and so he would, invite his family, his friends, and all he would play is salsa merengue the whole time. So I was growing up, watching him. I'd see him mess around with the bongos, mess around with the cowbell and stuff. And I remember I was curious because I'd like start to like dabble on the table. Maybe sometimes in front of the speaker, I'd hit, kind of tap away, and try to follow the rhythm. But I officially didn't see, from my recollection, I didn't see anybody play drums until the age of 8, and that started when I went to church, to a Christian church out in a city called Southgate, California. I went out there and I saw somebody with drums on the stage, with piano, with bass, and I'm like, oh man, that sounds and looks really cool. Like, what would it be like to start studying music, or start learning how to play drums? So that's kind of where the curiosity kind of sparked. And so I mentioned it to my dad. I said, Dad, like, I would love to start playing drums. And so he's like, well, funny enough, your brother wants to start learning how to play piano. And so
Oh,
that's kind of where everything kind of coincided. And so my brother and I started taking, music lessons. And at that time, man, the church did us a huge favor. We only paid $40 a month for both of us. You know,
wow.
which was
That's
an
awesome.
incredible prize, and they were extremely generous. And I got to study with this guy named Gerson Reyes. I think his ethnicity is Guatemalan or Salvadorian. I'm not sure, but he teaches at a school out in East LA, I believe, a high school out there, and at a college. And so, he started teaching me how to play music in church, but not just music in church. It was, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a drummer, but we're going to work on different, you're going to learn how to play different styles of music. It's not just going to be church music, it's not going to just be gospel. He taught me how to play Latin music, rock, country, a little bit of jazz. He taught me a little bit of reading as well for music, which is really important. And so that was kind of the journey, and this all started around, 9 years old, around there, really, really young. And I did that for about a year. And then the music program unfortunately came to the end at the school. And so we ended up having to, I ended up just at that time, I think YouTube had just come out in 2006, or
Yeah.
yeah, somewhere around that time. And so I was like, okay, well, YouTube Academy it is. So anything
Right.
that I wanted to learn, I just started to search on YouTube, and I'd see my heroes drumming inspirations on there, and I just start watching videos, and that's kind of how it all developed, and where everything began. So yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so, in what you play now, do you find that because you've had that Latin heritage, influence early on, do you find that in your style now, or maybe has it developed into something completely unique on its own as a drummer?
I okay, so you know, one of my favorite styles to play, I'll just say, is Latin music. That's something that's kind of ingrained in me because of my father and my mom. I love salsa. I love a style called timba, which I think it really came from Cuba, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, a lot of the music that we play comes from Africa, right? It's
Mhm.
Afro-Cuban music, Afro-Brazilian, Afro-Peruvian. And a lot of people think it's just a Peruvian. It's like no, it is from Peru, but it's an extension from Africa. And so,
Right.
a lot of what I learned how to play, and the curiosity from it, was just learning these different styles of music. Now, I don't necessarily play a lot of salsa. I don't get to play that as much as I'd like to. I mostly play pop music, and so a lot of these corporate events, like I was mentioning, we do a ton of top 40 music, which is Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder. If the
Right.
newer generation, you have Justin Timberlake, Bruno Mars. So we do a lot of that stuff. I currently am working at Disney California Adventure, and so during the Food and Wine Festival, we do rock music, we do pop, and we do Latin. Specifically, we do a lot of Selena music. So that's cumbia
Okay.
right there. I think it's Tex-Mex, maybe is what it's the actual term. So, and then I work for another artist who just does mariachi, I think a little bit of norteño and cumbia, and her name is Ana Barbara. So she, that's her style of music. So I'm still playing Latin music, but not
Yeah.
necessarily the Latin music that I like really, really enjoy and that I listen to. I still love what I play, but there's like a certain style which is Latin music of salsa and timba that it's like, man, if I could listen to this all day.
Right.
So yeah.
So then, as a creative, how do you ensure then that, yes, because you have made a career out of your talent, out of your skill, to where you can still implement, in this case, a genre, into your everyday playing, right? Because there's always that when, even me myself thinking back, there's always something that inspires you to get into, whatever creative outlet that is. And it's like you mentioned that soft spot of, oh, hey, maybe it was for some people it was classical music, for some people it was pop, for some it was R&B, soul, whatever. And so, how do you ensure then that you are able to still incorporate that specific genre that you do love, right? Not just for your job or for work, but just for yourself as a creative to know that, like, I'm enjoying this still, right? Because it's easy for us to, I guess, if you want to say, capitalize on something, right, on a talent, and then kind of be think of it as another job. Like, okay, like, yes, I love drums, or I love, in my case, playing piano, but now I just feel like I'm just doing it to, make money, and it's not where I want it to be. Of, I love this, or I have as much love or adoration for it as I did before. So how do you
Yeah.
ensure that you keep that continuity, into your career?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question because I have found that just working. First of all, practicing is something that I'm still doing today. I've been playing drums since I was 8. I'm 32, about to be 33 next month. So I've been doing drums for quite a while now, over 20 years. And I would say that the thing that still I am passionate about is practicing. It's not something that when I first started playing music, I would practice in my garage maybe for about 4 or 5 hours. As you get older, you get other obligations. You have to work. I'm currently engaged, so I'm going to be getting married next year, and so a lot of my time is going towards planning that. Okay, here comes our wedding. My brother's just got engaged as well, so he's getting married this year, and I'm the best man, so I'm trying to organize that part of it.
Right.
So plus I still have to work. So the times that I'm home, during the week, I try and sit down here, and I'm actually trying to start creating content from my house, playing music that
Yeah.
I want to play. So what I did
Right.
was, you can't see it here, but I have a GoPro set up right up here, this angle, which captures the top of the drums, and another GoPro set up right behind me. And so the goal is essentially to start posting covers of music or styles that I like to play, or maybe I'm just rehearsing something and I just like the way the clip came out, and to start
Right.
posting on my social media page. Because social
Yeah.
media is such a important part of music, and not just music, but the world. And it's essentially your business card. When you say, hey,
Sure.
I want to hire Kevin Chong, but I have no idea how he plays. You don't wait for me to send you my business card and then go to my website. People are like, okay, send me his Instagram. So a lot of the
Yeah.
time, our attention span is very minute these days, man, because of TikTok, because of short form content, where you want to push out as much content as you can, but you kind of delve into what long responses were, right? So if you have a 5 minute cover, well, okay, well, here's a 30-second section of the verse. Here's a 30-second section of the chorus. Here's a 30-second section of the bridge, and so I find myself trying to really dig into that, and mostly inspired by friends of mine that has started doing this. I have two friends of mine that started doing social media rigorously and intentionally, a couple of maybe I'd say about 2-3 years ago, since COVID happened, and they've gone from a couple hundred to 1,000 followers to almost one friend of mine has 40,000 followers in a span of a year and a half, almost 2 years, and the other guy has almost 90,000 followers, and that really inspires
Right.
me because it's like, man, these guys are doing what they love. They're editing the video, they're taking time to create content that people might want to watch, but you find that specific niche, and you start to work on it. You try to hone in on what that is. And so, I was posting a lot of covers or a lot of my on stage plays. So what I would do is I would take my GoPros to all these shows when I was on tour last year, and I would record every single show. So I have enough content to keep putting out. But I know that
Yeah.
eventually, okay, nobody just wants to see one style of music every single time. Maybe that is the case, but I just find for myself, because I'm not just a Latin drummer. I'm also not just a rock drummer. I'm not just also a pop drummer. I want to showcase my versatility. So I
Right.
try to really focus in on that. So I'm currently working on finally setting up my drums, the tones to sound right, and to start pushing that content out. So that
Right.
consistently, I feel like reinvigorated because I didn't have this opportunity a couple of years ago. Thankfully, some of the companies, I want to give shout out to some of the companies that support me, which are Audix microphones, which are on the drums, Groove Gear, Big Fat Snare Drum, 64 Audio, and I feel like I'm missing one more. Maybe it's because I'm not looking at it. But those are the companies that really have pushed me. But part of the contract and part of the support is push out content. Let
Right.
other people know that you're using our equipment. So that's part of the push of me wanting to just not get complacent. It's like, okay, I want to put content out, not just for myself, but also to show that, hey, these are the companies that support me and I support them and I love what they provide for me. The only way I could
Right.
repay them really is by continuing to shout them out on Instagram, shout them out on social media, and let other people know this is what I use. It might not be your preference, but this is what works for me. So
Right.
I think it's most of that, and a lot of it is just seeing other drummers and other friends really succeed in the social world.
Right.
I'm a Christian, also as well, and I'm a believer. So I grew up in the church. So a lot of it is, my faith in God, and that's something that's always played a huge role in my life since I was a young boy. That's really how I started playing drums. It was at church, right? So that was, I
Right.
came to know the Lord at a very young age, and thankfully I've never had an instance where I've stepped away from faith. It's always been something that's been a part of my life, and it continues to be, So hopefully that
Right.
answers your question.
Oh, yeah, yeah, 100%. So then, can you kind of talk about? There's a few things I want to touch on.
Mhm.
One is how did you make those connections, right? I know, especially growing up in the church, you automatically you have the connections there of, just getting to even just know the person sitting next to you and finding out what they do, and again making that connection. But can you kind of walk us through your journey of how you went from, in this case, starting off with your brother, learning music with your brother, to now, going on tour and playing with a band.
Yeah. So the connections, man. Okay, so I remember this was my first real exposure to the secular world, I'd say. When I was going to this church in Rancho, this is maybe 2012, actually, because of taxes. Funny enough, um, a friend of mine, his name is Nestor, either Pranuic or Pranuic. I'm not sure. He's Argentinian. He used to live in Rancho. He moved to
Oh,
Tennessee.
I'm
He,
Argentinian.
you live in Rancho?
No, no, I'm Argentinian as well. My family's from Argentina.
Oh, amazing. Oh, cool. So we have a lot of things in common, man. I love you guys' steaks, by the way, and chimichurri. So bomb. You know? Yeah, so this friend of mine was used to play for this cover band, and it was specifically it was a top 40 band, but more so it was a lot of country music. And so I'm talking about we would play anywhere between 40 to 50 songs a night. And I'm talking about we start at 9 p.m. and finish at 1 p.m. I'm sorry, 9 p.m. finish at 1 a.m. So we're playing
Right,
45-minute sets, about 60 songs a night, and this is sometimes 2 nights in a row. So you're talking about 120 songs. Even if they're the same song, you're still playing that many songs per
right,
night.
right,
And so when I would, he was the one that really gave me this opportunity. He told me, "Hey, I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to be moving to Tennessee, but this band needs a drummer. Would you like to take over?" And he's like, it's gonna be a bit of work to learn this material, but once you got it, you got it. And I was like, yes, of course, man. Like, let me see if this is something that I want to do. And so I was really like, do I really want to do this? I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's just go for it. Like, this is an opportunity. Let me just do it. And that was kind of my way into starting to meet friends that have gone out and now played for major artists, and that opened up an opportunity. This was 2012. I went to school in 2014 for music, and that was another great opportunity. Going to school for music was one of the best decisions that I made as a musician. And I will say that I almost didn't do it. Um, a friend of mine, his name is Alberto Salas. Man, he's MD'd for played for Christina Aguilera. He used to MD for this artist, gospel legend named Andre Crouch. He was on the album of Carlos Santana's Supernatural. If you know the song Corazón Espinado, he is the one that played keys on this song. And they ended up winning a Grammy for the album, and I think for that song. And so
yeah,
I remember he messaged me and he told me, hey, bro, there's this school that it just opened up a couple years ago, and they have these amazing instructors. They had Jimmy Brantley, Armando Ruiz, Abraham Laborio Sr., Mauricio Guerrero Sr. as well. They had these amazing instructors that have played, recorded with Michael Jackson, Madonna, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind, and Fire. They've either worked with them in some way, in the recording capacity, or played for them. And so he's like, all these instructors. He would tell me this. He's like, all these instructors are going to be teaching there, and right now they're currently holding auditions. And so he's like, if you want to audition, if you win first, second, or third place, you're automatically guaranteed a scholarship. If you don't win it, though, he's like, the school program is about 80 grand for 4 years. So I was like, man, Lord, like, let me see if I can, if I can do this. And so I was extremely hesitant, because I remember I told him, hey, man, like, thank you for the opportunity, but I'm extremely comfortable playing at church. He's like, I'm extremely comfortable. Just, I told him, like, I play at church every weekend. Yeah, I'm making like $150 a week. It's, dude, that's great money, at that time. And I would tell him, like, I don't know if I need to go to school for music. I remember he told me, if you were my son, I'd slap your head, bro. Like, he's like, come on, man. He's like, dude, there's just an opportunity of a lifetime. He's like, if you do get
yeah,
the scholarship, you're not paying for anything. I'm assuming you'd probably only have to pay for school fees. And sure enough, man, I ended up winning third place. I got a scholarship. I paid for 3.5 years of music schooling, and because I was able to transfer units from my community college to this school, I paid only $3,500 in total. So from 80 grand that what the school would have cost, because music school, Berkeley, MI, it's not cheap. It's not cheap.
Right. Expensive.
Extremely expensive. And so yeah, I only paid $3,400, man, and I got to study with these amazing instructors, which in turn led me to meet other musicians that are also in the industry. And so that generated opportunities for me to connect with musicians that are touring, stuff that I wanted to do, traveling, recording, like live session play, corporate events. That kind of opened up the doors. I mean, just like the windows of heaven was just like wide open, and so
Right.
I tried to take advantage of that as much as possible, and that's really what catapulted my opportunities to expand even more because of going to school for music and studying and getting to meet these musicians that are dear friends of mine now, and that led to opportunities now, to play at Disney, to work with, Anna Barbara. I mean, there's other artists, as well, but a lot of it was that just making connections, And I will say this, I do want to add this, because a lot of people think once you get on the gig, you keep the gig. It's really important. I'd say for musicians to remember that humility is as much of an important aspect of your character as your style of play. I can play drums really well, right? That's what most people will say. I can play drums really well, and I can probably get any gig that I want. That's that. I'm not saying this about myself. I'm just saying that's what musicians that tend to think that highly of themselves is like. I can do any gig, and so just put me on it, and I'm gonna kill it. And I think being humble and remembering like where your roots are from, remembering that hey, there are other people that exist that are better than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That take that craft even much more seriously than you do, so something important for me has always trying to remain grounded and remember like the humility aspect, like this is a gift from God that I'm getting this opportunity to play. It doesn't matter if I earned it. It's like, what, like through the grace of the Lord, I've been able to get this work, but it's not always going to be for me. There might be an instance where management gets tired of me because whatever the case is, and I end up getting let go. That happens all the time in the music industry. The music business is extremely difficult, to keep. But I think we're just being level-headed, remembering that what the gig isn't about you. It's about making sure you're good to hang with people as well. You probably are spending an hour and a half, 2 hours at most on stage if you're on tour, right? Well, how much of that time are you spending with everyone else at the
Right.
hotel, in the green room, in the lobby, hanging out like on planes, on the tour bus? Like, how much of that time are you good to be around? Can you hang with those people? Are you annoying? Like those things are, I think very much to consider, to be level headed, because it's like, man, it doesn't matter how great of a musician you are. You have to be an even better person than you are a musician, I
Yeah.
think. So, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you kind of talk about? I know you mentioned earlier that there was a point where you weren't even sure that you wanted to um, go to music school, right?
Mhm.
And like you mentioned, I think one of the biggest hindrances, even now, for a lot of people, even just wanting to get further education, is the cost, right? Just schooling, colleges, universities in general are expensive. Um, can you kind of walk us through just your thought process, as best as you can recall, of what really pushed you to continue to even, try out for that scholarship and to decide to continue your career in music and going
So
through
that
school?
Yeah, so my parents were a big part of that. I ended up having, my I'm a mama's boy by nature. I'm the second of four, but I love my mom, and I always have these intense conversations that we're Peruvian too, man. So sometimes even the way I'm talking, it's kind of funny because my fiance will be in the car. I'll be driving or I'll be driving her somewhere, or whatever. We'll be going on a date, and I'll be getting very passionate about a conversation, and my voice goes from like very straight to it just jumps up. And so there's times that like my tone of voice it sounds like I'm screaming, or it sounds like, why are you talking so loud? And it's like, man, I'm just extremely passionate. And it comes down to my dad being Peruvian. I'm sure maybe even you, man, being Argentinian. Our parents just like there's such a passion within Latin culture, And so I would talk to my mom and my dad about this, and my dad would be like, Kev, like in Spanish, he would tell me, Kev, like you got to go to school. He's like, it's an opportunity you're gonna get. When is an opportunity like this going to open up again, if ever? He's like, you're talking, and I would tell him, he would ask me, what are the conditions? I'm like, well, if I don't get the scholarship, it's 80 grand. If I do get it, maybe at most, like I said, 35, $400, maybe say $5,000 for 3.5 years. He's like, Kev, that's a
Right.
no brainer. So a lot of it was mature advice from my parents, and obviously Alberto being a big part of my life too. I took his advice, and I ended up, it was a leap of faith for myself. I was nervous. I was like, man, what if I don't get it? And even until I auditioned, man, I was still hoping that I didn't get it. I was still like, man, I hope I don't get it. But the Lord had other plans. So a lot of it was them pushing me to seek that next step, and push forward as much as I could, and even then, man, like I said, like I thought, honestly, going to Chaffey Community College out here in Rancho, I thought I was going to die there. I was only taking 1 unit a semester. You're supposed to take at least four, right? Because
Yeah.
every 4 units is a complete, semesters. That's what, 12 units at a time. But I was only taking 3 a semester. So if you divide that, I'm taking one unit for one semester. Okay, another unit for another semester. That's 1 year right there. I got to wait another year to take another unit, and so it was just like, I'm just going to stay in community college, and that was the plan. But obviously, the Lord had other plans, and I was able to do this with schooling, and thank God I pursued it, But a lot of it was my mom and my dad pushing me to do it, and it was a leap of faith, and I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely having that support system is very beneficial. I know, and so I work at a high school here in
Mm.
Tucson, and it's interesting to see the environment, how the environment shapes, you know, um, I guess that person, right? In this case, a student, and just how far a person is willing to go when they have that support system,
Yeah.
as opposed to if they didn't, and granted, for those that are able to lift themselves up to where they get so many things accomplished, kudos to them. But I think it's always beneficial as a creative to not only just have that support system, but somebody that will also keep you grounded.
Yeah.
It's I think it's easy for creatives to dream really big, right? And I think it's great that we do, but um, having that person that's just like, hey, like, what are the steps to get there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Realistically, what can we do to get there, right? And like even having that negativity of so for me personally, like I'll get inside my head like, oh, I should do this, I can do this, and it's like, oh, well, what if I can't? Like, what if
Mm.
all these little negative intrusive thoughts like, no, you can't do this, you won't be able
Yeah.
to do it, right? And then just my wife coming along and be like, no, like, do it, try it.
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst that can happen, right? Even starting our YouTube channel like that, I'll tell you, man, that took like 2 years in the making of just thinking about like, well, what if I do this, right? Because I'll teach piano. Like,
Uh-huh.
well, what if I do this for students? What if I do this to talk to other creatives and network? What if I do this so other people get inspired? And just having that support, my wife just do it, just like just do it. Talk to people, do this, do that. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Nobody watches it. Who cares? It's still out there, right? And one of the there's a YouTube channel, Think Media.
Is that
One of the
Sean
things,
Cannell?
John Cannell, yeah.
Amazing,
I
bro.
just watched, yeah. He just came out with the video, and one of the things that he mentioned was even if nobody watches your video, what are you leaving for your children, right? What legacy are you leaving for your kids? If they were to watch your video, who would they see,
Mm.
right? And so just thinking about that was like, dang, like that's really good.
Yeah.
And again, just having that support of like, what do I want to leave, for my kids, and what do I want them to see in the future? But I want to kind of shift our topic a little bit to something that you mentioned as far as social media, right? I know you mentioned that Instagram is a huge, huge, just networking system of, again, like in this case, it's like, what are business cards, right? Like check out their check out their Instagram, right? Who are they? Who can you see, right? Um, can you kind of talk about a little bit as far as how social media, and you talked about this a little bit too, as far as like an attention span. And I'll tell my students all the time, like typically a person's attention span is like 10 to 15 seconds,
Right.
right? If that, because even most times, what we call doom scrolling, like if you're not captivated within the first, second, half a second, you just scroll past to the next video, right? So can you kind of talk about how social media has affected, I guess, the music industry as a whole, and how you were able to network and I guess really put yourselves out there, right? Because even looking at your repertoire of the things that you have accomplished with your YouTube channel, your Instagram, everything on your website. Just can you kind of tell us how that shaped you and how you think it's going to continue to shape those that are wanting to get into the music industry?
So I think I'm not an expert by any means of social media, but like very much like you, I feel like I know what it is to succeed in social media. Like I really genuinely think that I know what it is to do it. I'm just not doing it, and that's more so. You can call it procrastination, you can call it laziness, you can call it not asserting yourself, whatever the case might be. When I started my YouTube channel, funny enough, I was doing interviews with musicians, with artists, people that I personally know, and even some individuals that I don't know. They were friends of mine that were able to recommend me to, like, hey, this guy is starting his YouTube channel and he wants to interview musicians, he wants to interview artists, whatever, producers, and so they would connect me with these people. And I ran this
Yeah.
podcast show for nearly about 2 years. Now the hardest thing was a little bit different in your way, that you're okay with doing it through Zoom, or what is this website called?
So
Podcastle.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, no, I want to go in person and I want to do it. And so, dude, I was like, man, let me just start recording these videos. And I had no idea what it was to edit videos, how to do multicam, what mics to use, what interface to buy. I didn't do any of my research. I just knew I wanted to do it. And so one day I said to myself, okay, if I put up a post on my social media and I just say episode releasing this Friday with this individual, that provides a type of personal obligation. It's out in the world, it's out on social media. People are expecting to see this video. How the heck am I going to do it? So I just
Yeah.
one day I decided I'm going to do it. And so the first episode was with Abraham Laborio Sr. Now, for your viewers that may not know who Abraham Laborio Sr. is, he's a legendary bass player. He was one of the musicians that I was talking about that has played with Lionel Richie, I believe Michael Jackson. His son is Abraham Laborio Jr., who plays with Paul McCartney, the drummer. So
Wow.
they're legends in the industry, and they've been around for a very long time. He's recorded on over 4,000 records, and an extremely loving and humble human being, one of the best in the world. I'll say that, not just because he was my instructor, but just as an individual, man. His heart is so big, and he's done Frozen, he's done so many Disney movies, he's done literally everything that you can think of in the music industry. And so, I remember I asked him, Ken, Abraham, would you consider doing this podcast episode with me? You're the first one. And he was like, yeah, of course. So I went to his studio, I recorded the episode. Okay, now this is Wednesday, right? I had just posted on Wednesday. I'm gonna post this episode. So Wednesday comes around, we record it. I remember I edited the next day on Thursday the video for combined Thursday and Friday, 16 hours on Final Cut. I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
multicam. My audio wasn't even the best either. I didn't know what mics to use. In fact, I think, if I remember correctly, the podcast interview was an hour and 40 minutes. And I had my
Wow.
friend Alex Maldonado, bless his heart. He had a A7 6000 camera from Sony, no tripod. So he's holding the camera like this for an hour
Wow.
and 40 minutes, man. There's another camera that I think we used that was on a tripod, but we needed a wide angle one. And so he was an hour and 40 minutes on a couch like this, man. At the end, his arms were hurting him. It was killing him. It was in 1080p. Like, dude, like I said, I'm talking about 2018, 2017, somewhere around there. And I recorded this episode, and all that to say, sometimes putting things out on social media is going to push you to do it even when you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
Like Sean Cannell as well. I've taken, of course, a course of his as well, where he talks about that. Yeah, put up a video, even if nobody watches it. You're at least putting it out there. You're
Right.
at least, you can at least go back and be like, man, I actually did that. I worked my butt off. Yeah, who cares? Maybe the first 100 videos nobody's watching, but on the 101st, maybe somebody will start to tune in. Maybe
Yeah.
it's like, oh
Right.
man, like this is actually really good content, and you learn things about yourself. Even interviewing,
Right.
I'm sure you learned, what it is, what questions to ask, what questions not to ask, what topics to touch, what topics not to touch. Even
Right.
as simple as, like, when someone's speaking, for example, which I can see you're extremely good at, just listening, being attentive. When I was doing podcasting, I'd interview and be like, "Yep, mm-hmm." You're right. No, that's good. And my buddy was like, dude, you have a great podcast, but you're interjecting way too much because you have to think
Mm,
about it. Even as minute details, if when you convert this audio, right? Let's say that you put it on Spotify. Okay, he would even tell me, what about the drivers that are going in traffic or they want to listen to your hour and a half, hour and a half podcast? Do you want them turning up the knob up and down with the audio? He's like, no. He's like,
right,
so learn to use compression, learn how to use, equalizer, making sure that the audio is level, and so that way when people are listening, even if you have commercials, everything is straight, and they don't. You just have to turn up the knob once, to be able to hear what your episode is about. But a lot of social media, going back to that question, I don't want to forget it. Is building a channel, which I'm like I said, I'm trying to do that, and I'm trying to experiment with shorts because YouTube has been pushing that for the last year and a half, 2 years now. A friend of mine actually, he's a Pokemon Go player. And so, dude, his videos just doing shorts, man, he grew from like 500 subscribers to 10,000 in like 3 months. And
wow,
I was like, dude, like if he can do that,
right,
what's stopping us, you and me, or me, whatever, from growing this channel, from growing my social media? And really, it's just that it's just applying myself and really just pushing myself and recognizing social media presents so many opportunities, man. It's not just about like the reward you get is not just posting content that you love because it's about what you want to do. It's posting your niche,
right,
what you are focused on, but eventually, hopefully that generates passive income from the ads that you can get on YouTube, from the analytics that Google provides. You just don't know where the growth can come from. And eventually, you have also with affiliate marketing. People want to know, hey Kev, what drums are you using? What microphone, what camera are you using to record your videos? And I'm like, oh,
right,
cool. Here's my Amazon link, or here's this link to go. Once you use my code, look at all the influencers, man. And dude, like some of these influencers, and like I said, I just want to reiterate, it's not about the money because we're already passionate as it is. We love what we do, but hey,
right,
like that's an extra thing that comes on top of whatever it is that you're already doing. Why not explore that realm? So social media, I think for me, growing Instagram, growing my YouTube channel, even my website, targeting people to go there, whatever. That's what I'm just fine tuning, like I said, my drum sounds. But the goal is I want to push out as much content daily if I can as possible. And when I'm on tour, then I'll just record the videos, like I said, like I was already doing, and posting them on social media. But I think it plays a big part. And if you're not on it, if you're not active on it, like it's kind of like that quote, like you're out of sight, out of mind. If you're not
right.
around, nobody's gonna remember you. Or nobody's gonna even know that you were around. You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, that's what I think it comes down to. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one thing that you mentioned that I really like, and I was talking about this with a videographer, and one of the things that he mentioned is that as creatives, we need that deadline, right? Because we always want to build on an idea that we have, and it can get to the point where there may be, and which isn't a bad thing, but there may be no end, but there has to be a deadline of okay, like not that I'm satisfied, but that I'm happy and content with what I have so far, and move on to the next thing, right? And not necessarily forget completely what you previously worked on, but to the point of okay, like hey, you have this, right? Share it with somebody, publish it, right? One of the things that I always tell my students, right, especially when we prepare for recitals, is like, guys, you've prepared, 3, 6 months, a year for this moment, like this is your time to shine. Like publish it, share your work, right? Don't just keep it to yourself. And bless his soul, his name was Paul Black. One of the things that he said was, one of the best things that you can do as a creative is to share it with others,
Hmm.
right? Not to hoard it to yourself, right? And in the Bible, it even tells us like to use our talents, right?
Hmm.
I forget the parable, but the one where God gives talents to two men, and one goes and multiplies and says, "Here, this is what I've done with what you've given me," and the other one's like, "No, I buried it. This is exactly what you gave me back."
That's good.
Right? And
Yeah.
so it's that same idea of like, okay, as a creative, there's a reason why we have it, right? There's a reason why we have these gifts, and I think one of the most awesomest things that like I mentioned, was just sharing it with others, right? And even you doing so with posting it on YouTube or Instagram, but even teaching it to others, right?
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk us through just like because I know that you teach drums. Just what I guess pushes you to do that, right? Because I mean, you have all these other million things going on, but how do you make that time to to still do lessons?
To teach, man. So one of the it's funny because one of the main reasons why I didn't go to school for music or end up getting my master's, right? I got my bachelor's, but I didn't get my master's, was because it's okay. Like I'm probably gonna have to pay for it this time, number one, and then number two. But mostly people that go to music school for their masters end up teaching. And I knew that for
Right.
myself, I want to be a session player. I want to do live music. I want to tour, and so I'm like, that's what I really want to focus on. But I still find myself, I was like, wait a minute, like that's kind of selfish of me to hold this gift that God has given me from sharing it with others. Because there are times that I post on my story and like, dude, like, how did you do that, Phil? Like, how did you get that video, with that audio, or like, how do you play that style of music? And it's selfish of me to say, I don't want to share that with you. Well, what about
Right.
everybody else that have built these amazing drum programs that are, Drumeo and Mike Johnson Lessons and Orlando Drummer, all these amazing instructors, man, that exist that are sharing this wealth of knowledge, on social media, and I'm like, there's things that they know that they do extremely well and they're sharing it with others and they're succeeding at that, and so
Right.
the opportunity came specifically with Orangewood Academy through my friend Keith Blanco. He's a tech director at Relove Church in Garden Grove, and so I actually was the one that approached him about it. I said, "Hey man, like, I know you work at the school as a tech director, and you know at the church as a tech director, but I know you also work for the school during the week. Do you guys have a music program for drums?" And he's like, "No, we currently don't." And I was like, "Dude, like, I would love to, if it's once a week, I would love to be a part and share." And I'm like, "How old are your students?" He's like, "Well, at most," he's like, "the youngest you're gonna get it, I think is our sixth graders, I believe, and the oldest are seniors." And I was like, "Okay, great. That's a great age. Those are great ages to teach because the retention obviously is a lot more than a 3 or 4 year old. Obviously, you're right, and you
Yep.
can teach for an hour. And that's why initially when I would do lessons, if I was teaching a kid younger than 5, I would do no more than an hour and a half because you have to
Right.
be over animated to teach kids that
Yeah.
age. You know what I mean? I'm sure you know as an instructor. So, but with kids older, it's like no, like they know what it means to be responsible. They know what yes means, they know what no means. So I'm like, okay, like we're gonna, I'm gonna help you guys learn how to do this, but here's what I expect, and not only that, I don't just expect it, out of the child, but I push the parent. I say, push your child to practice these things because either way, you're the one paying for it. Like why would you
Yeah.
want to throw away money, good money that you worked hard for your kid to be in a class for an hour and not remember
Yeah.
anything. So I tell my kids both private and in school, bring a binder, bring a plastic sheet, bring line paper. The plastic sheet is to work on reading music, right? So they keep the sheet and they can practice at home. The line paper is
Yeah.
for me to reiterate what it is they need to practice. Or if I need to draw, maybe give a clear illustration of something, I'll use the paper for that. And so then I have them in. Okay, most kids have smartphones these days, so have them download a metronome app, the Pro Metronome app specifically, right? And then some earphones, and then their sticks, obviously. I think that creates good discipline when you obligate kids to remember to bring stuff for themselves. You could
Yeah.
do it where I provide everything for you, and that's great. But
Right.
as a kid and as you're still maturing and, and learning stuff about yourself, I think those are good disciplines. And you want to share those with kids that are still young and, and still live with their parents and still learning. It's like, and I try to, it's kind of funny because I use the analogy because I have a kid that's, man, this kid is only, I think he's 12 years old, but he's taller than me, man. I'm 5'5". This kid is like almost 6 feet at 12 years old. I'm 32, bro. So you could feel how I feel when I'm like a 12-year-old is taller than me. And I'm like, man, but I love this kid. And so I compare the analogy because he loves to play Call of Duty. I'm like, how did you learn how to play Call of Duty? I'm like, break it down to the most you can. He's like, well, I picked up the controller. Right. So what'd you know how to do all that? Oh, I turned on the PlayStation. From there, I watched the TV. Then I watched the tutorial, and then I started moving around. Oh, this right stick does this. This left stick, for toggle does this. It's the same thing with drums. When you're learning how to play drums, you learn how to hold the stick. From there, you learn your technique. You learn how to move the fulcrum. Your arm, not over accentuating your arm, not to get hurt. So I really try to work on technique and these forms of playing so that kids can play, even when it comes to sitting down correctly, which I'm not doing right now, but I should. Posture, very, very important, so you don't injure your back. Now they have a lot of great companies, man, that sell these really good drum thrones for your lumbar support, for good back posture. And you have a lot of drummers
Yeah.
that are teaching that too, making sure that you're positioned well, your hands are not too high nor too low. Those are the little things. And so I believe in foundational techniques with kids as they mature, because once they build these good habits, they're not going to break them. And it's kind of, it's the thing where once you learn something, it's extremely difficult to unlearn it or to forget it.
Right.
And really, you'd have to either stop doing it completely, or or just, yeah, you just don't do it anymore. So a lot of it is just working with these kids at the school and imparting this knowledge that I have, as much as I can. I don't know everything, obviously, and I admit that, but what I don't know, I will try to get you the best answer possible. Thankfully, I have the
Yeah.
friends that, are doing music even at a bigger scale than I do. So I can reach out to them like, hey, how did you do this? Or hey, how did you get this gig? Or hey, like, how do you keep this gig? Questions like that. So yeah, that's really what it comes down to, man. I love sharing that with kids and and students in general, so that hopefully, once I'm long gone, man, the legacy lives on beyond me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. That's awesome. So then, as for someone that has been playing, drums for a while now, how have you seen? We'll start. Let's start with, I guess just the concept of drumming to where it was back then to where it is now with today's
Okay.
music, with today's, I guess, top hits. You know what I mean? How has
Okay.
that evolved throughout, time that you've been playing?
Oh man. So, well, from the time I thought you were saying in general, because the evolution has been
Well,
extremely,
you did
extremely big.
so far back.
Yeah, yeah. Far further than me, man. You're talking about an instrument that's, what, more than. I mean, if you're talking about drums specifically, like a 5-piece drum set, I think it's the age of it is maybe 70, 80 years old, something like that. Maybe, and I might be maybe even younger than that. I'm not too sure. I don't know the history behind when the first drum set was invented. This type of drum set, but as far as the evolution of when I started to where it is now, so when I started playing at church in drums, we wouldn't use a metronome. I grew up in a small Pentecostal church, so a lot of it was like sit on here's a song, go learn it, practice it, come to rehearsal on Thursday and play the song with the band. That was what it was. Okay. My first exposure to the transition of going from playing with no metronome to completely playing with click tracks, Ableton, all that, was when I went to
Yeah.
this big church out here in Rancho Cucamonga. It's called Abundant Living Family Church. This was back in 2009, maybe around there, somewhere around that time, either 2009 or 2012. I can't remember. And there was this music director, his name is Julio Martinez, where he started playing the click. And I'm like, hmm, something is off here. Like, I can't keep up with it. I was nervous
Mhm.
to play with the click. I was nervous to play strong, where I was normally confident. And I felt like the weakest link out of all these other professional musicians that have these charts right in front of them. They're reading these charts, they're playing with click, they're killing it. And here am I not doing any of that. So he had to have a
Mhm.
whole conversation with me and I'm like, hey Kev, like, I know you're relatively young, he's like, but you need to work on this. You, whatever you do, he's like, if you're trying to do music at a professional level, you got to be able to play with click. You got to be able to play with multi-tracks, with sequences, with stems, like we would use these MPC machines, which in gospel music is, and Kojic music is, sometimes that's your click. So that's all you have. It's just literally a drum loop. He would make it on the spot, you play it, he would start it 4 bars, okay, count the band in or do a drum fill to lead the band in, and that was how
Yeah.
we did it. So I would say the evolution of when I started, at a small Pentecostal church to expanding, and thankfully, man, that has stuck around even beyond 2012 when I was learning how to use it. Now every church that you go to, man, because CCM is such a dominant style of music within
Yeah.
in the church, every church plays with click, every church plays with stems and multi-tracks. It's just an important part. And now you have have you heard of Planning Center online? I don't know if you've used that or
I have not. No.
so there's this program for churches. It's called PC. We call it PCO, but the actual name is Planning Center Online. So normally the worship director or the music director will send out this PCO invite, Planning Center Online invite, and it'll have who the musicians are for the week team. It'll have the worship leader, singers, the background singers, the tech director, everybody. Within the app, you have access to the songs, you have access to the charts, and you have access to the when you're scheduled, essentially, right? And
Right.
so if you're doing it correctly, most people will upload an Ableton session or stems, and you can download the stems and hear what it is the drums are playing. So say that the music director says, "Hey, I want you to learn to play this song. Let's say, what's a current song? Praise by Elevation Worship. Okay, it's a very popular song nowadays. Um, I want you to learn to play this exact drum groove or this exact drum fill at the top of the song, and here are the stems. So you get the stems, and the drums are exactly what was recorded on the record. So essentially, you have no excuse to come unprepared, right?
Right.
So this PCO was a game changer from years ago. I think it's existed more than 10 years ago now. And that has you can upload the MP the WAV files, the MP, the stems, the click if you want, the whole file, the literally the whole session if you wanted to reference how it's going to be, even transitions. Okay, from this song, the count off ends. The next one is a quicker count off. Typically, a count off will be 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? The next song is not going to be that. It's going to be, instead of a 2 bar count, it's going to be a 1 bar count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, band in, little things like
Right.
that. So that's where things have really, really, I would say, have expanded and have grown to the betterment of the musicians, to the preparedness of the team, to the preparedness of every individual, honestly, that has access to these tools. And I'd say, man, it's made a world of a difference. Where before, like I said, I'd show up to church. Sometimes I wouldn't even know what we're playing till the day of, half an hour
Right.
before we are going to start service. Now it's not really
Right.
like that. A lot of churches
Right.
have thankfully grown and matured in that area,
Yeah.
and now utilize these tools that are accessible to us. So yeah, man, I'd say that, even recording. I mean, bro, like, I mean, what am I using here? I'm using a Mackie HR8 24, I think, speakers for monitors, a iMac. I'm running, Focusrite Thunderbolt to track my drums. I have like a 6 piece setup. So if people want, drums, I was like, okay, cool. Do you want the drums, mix, or do you want just raw tracks? Which raw tracks essentially just means there's no mix to the drums. It's just you're
Right.
hitting record and you send them out. So
Right.
and but you learn these things as you mature,
Right.
as a musician, and it's a good thing. It's a good tool to have, I think, and it's only gonna get bigger. I mean, the fear was essentially when pop music was beginning to utilize the use of these stems. It's like, okay, well, there goes a percussionist job, there goes a drummer's job. But really, I don't know if that part of music will ever be removed completely, man. And what I'm talking about is just you in pop music, getting rid of a drummer or getting rid of, a guitar player, bass player. Like, there's just something about having musicians on stage that no computer will ever replace. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, and
Right.
hopefully that doesn't change. Like I said, hopefully that remains to be the case forever. But again, I don't know. Now with the invention of AI, man, a lot of things are starting to shape up, and change within the industry. And even
Yeah.
videos are being doctored. And like, bro, like, I don't know if you saw that. Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did not know.
Okay, so if you watch, I believe if you watch the Super Bowl now, the one with featuring Usher and Alicia Keys, if you watch it on YouTube, when Alicia's part comes in, she actually, I believe, she went flat, and it was noticeably flat when it was live. Like, I was watching it while it was happening, and I'm like, whoa. She started with the song, "If I Ain't Got You," which some people want it all, right? That was a
Yeah.
song. She started on the chorus or whatever, and it was extremely flat. When they posted the video on YouTube, officially, you can't hear that. It sounds like she's like dead on. She didn't mess up. And it's like, wait a minute, I know what I heard. And I made sure I checked with other friends. Did you watch Super Bowl? I'm like, yeah. Did you hear Alicia mess up? And they're like, yeah, we did. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why is this not on YouTube? So that's scary, because that you're
Yeah.
removing history from what it actually was. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so like, that's what this whole fight back is. With artists and AI, people are recreating voices. Like, I don't know if you've heard, 50 Cent singing a Frank Sinatra song, or Frank Sinatra singing a 50 Cent song. It's like, dude, that's crazy.
Right.
They're replicating voices, and it's only gonna get scarier, man. That's what's
Yeah.
insane. So, but yeah, I mean, again, since when I started playing drums when I was 8 to now, it's changed a whole lot. But thankfully, I still get to play, and play with artists. So that's fun.
Right. So then I know you mentioned kind of like the negative of AI. Do you see any positives as a musician or as a creative, moving forward? Because I mean, it's only going to get more advanced, right? It's only going to
Uh,
get, I guess, better, right? To where it's at now. So I mean, do you see any positives with that as a musician?
are you talking about AI? I didn't hear the first part, or you're talking about
Yeah,
just
yeah.
in general?
Sorry, AI.
With AI. So, man, bro, like you have the access. A lot of friends I know now for their marketing campaigns, for their growth on social media, they're using Chat GPT. So
Mm,
a lot of them, are just asking like, write me this about this or whatever, or come up with a solution to this problem, whatever. And so I'd say like those are benefits within itself. I mean, now even phones are they're implementing the AI resources that you can have. I think
yeah,
on WhatsApp, on Instagram, on Facebook Messenger. Excuse me. So that's only going to expand. There's again, bro. And sorry that I keep saying, bro. I should call you Lucas, but it's just a
no,
common
you're
thing
good.
that I talk with friends. I feel bad, especially. I know you're not, probably not that much older than me, but when I talk to other people that are like twice my age, I call them bro or dude sometimes, and I have to catch myself. I'm like, man, I gotta respect my elders. I gotta respect. So I'm sorry I continue to do that, but
You're
um,
good, man. You're good.
but with AI doing music, I mean, implementing, I don't know. Honestly, man, I don't know what the answer is. I would say there are positives. I just don't know what those are. I'll be
Right,
honest. That's an answer I can't really give you thoroughly. I would say, yeah, the negative part is you don't know what's real anymore. You don't know what's fake unless you can find a way to download the video and see like how it was sourced. I would suppose, but I really don't know. I really don't know, and I don't know how that's gonna change the industry 10 years from now. Like I said, I don't think that's gonna, unless they're creating AI humans, that look exactly like us and can play drums or bass or keys just as good as a regular individual. Unless they're gonna be replacing individuals. But I would imagine how expensive that is to have a robot essentially on stage playing that. But it just
right,
doesn't sound authentic. It doesn't sound like we're prone to making mistakes. So there's times even in live settings, like I'm sure you've been to concerts where, man, that I don't think that's how that was supposed to sound, or I don't think that's the drum fill or the part that guy was supposed to play. Like, those are mess ups that happen all the time, even if you're playing, whether you're playing in front of 100 people or 20,000 people. It doesn't matter. We're just prone to be, mistakes existing. So yeah, but I don't know. I just hope um it doesn't change the opportunities that we get as musicians to continue to perform and travel, because that's really where it'll change the touring industry, to the likes of that we've never seen before. So I
right.
don't know. Yeah, that's my best answer, man. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, thank you. No. So then, as a musician, right, we have it's called artistic license, right, where we can take a song and kind of conform it to our own style as we develop that style or a style that we may already have, and just want to hear whatever song played in that style, right? I think like an example would be like. Furry Lisa in Ragtime. Like, obviously,
Ah,
that's not how it was written, but
right.
there's a version out there because that's how somebody wanted to hear it, and so that's what they did. So then, with AI, then do you think that claiming a product of AI, right, running through whatever software, hey, play, have 50 Cent play Frank or sing Frank Sinatra, and claiming it as if you were to come out and claim it as its own, do you think that would be a form of plagiarism, or would it just be another form of, I guess, artistic licensing?
I don't know if that would be a form of plagiarism, because you're not necessarily um I mean, unless it is that somebody played that song already, and oh, I see what your question is. I see what your yeah, that then yes, technically that would be a form of plagiarism if the style or the song itself already exists in that style, and all AI
Mm-hmm.
is doing is searching the web and finding this out and already downloading that or creating a version of that. So yes, technically I guess that would be plagiarism. You know,
Okay.
if it is that that's the case, yes, it's extremely unfortunate, and I would say like that's very scary, and it's sad because somebody took the time, a professional musician, a studied musician, somebody that learned how to play that instrument, took the time to play that part, probably individually, record it, master it, send it out, put it on the internet, and here comes AI, downloads that thing, and makes it what it already is. So
Right.
yeah, that in itself is kind of scary to hear and to think, and I think honestly, it's already happening. With the not even just as far as like now actors, I think the Actors Guild and the fight against that, with copyright and AI copyright, actors' voices being used in videos that they didn't actually license, and or promote themselves, So yeah, I think with music, that's a very scary thing to hear. There's and the thing is, unless there's some type of federal control in that way, by law, I don't know how you can stop that. You know what I mean? I
Right.
like what way could you like how could you say, that somebody did or didn't do something, and like I know they're making it obligatory on social media where now on YouTube, for example, they ask you, I think one of the questions about your content is something like, did you create this video? Did you force somebody to do this video this way or something like? Did you see this recently? If you uploaded a video?
I've seen this one, like, is this AI generated?
Yes,
Or
right. So now,
we
yeah,
generated.
yeah, so now you're being forced to admit that, and I would hope people are being honest. If that's the case, that that you're posting on YouTube, similar to how the question is this content suitable for children? Right. Most of the time, you would say either yes or no. But then if you say
Right.
yes, it's gonna hide it from what it's to the people that you actually want to watch it. And if you say no, then it's more exposed to the people you need to watch it, and less exposed to the kids that shouldn't. So, but yeah, I mean that is a scary thing to think about. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not up to date with the laws. That will probably be coming out in the next couple of years. I would hope, but I just hope there is some type of control in that way. And by saying this, man, like I hope I'm not saying I'm all for government control. I'm definitely not. I feel like
No,
as creatives,
yeah, right.
right now there's a situation too, like I think with the is it called the AB5 law? Was it the Uber drivers that were trying to basically fight for contracting so that they could get insurance through the
Oh,
company? So that was a big deal for musicians, for myself, because you have these churches that are now saying we need to make you an employee, a W-2, and essentially we're gonna. And I'm like, okay, so are you taking? You're gonna take away taxes, but you're not giving me health benefits. I don't get any dental. You're just taking away taxes. And I'm
right.
mostly 1099. So a lot of my work is, dude, I will buy another drum set probably this year. I will buy more sticks. I'm gonna buy more cymbals. For me, I
Right.
don't worry about like handling my taxes because I know that I have to spend money in order to keep running my business. If not
Yeah.
federally, I'm gonna owe so much to the government at the end of the year. I don't need another church or business or anything per se to take away more taxes from me if I'm not going to really benefit from the fact that you're taking taxes aside from just taking away taxes. And unfortunately, I feel like the state of California doesn't reward entrepreneurs like the way that they should. Like if you're making X amount of money, well, the more that you make, the more that you owe. And so you're being taxed on money that you save, you're being taxed on money that you spend. Like it's just like, dude, like it's hard. It's hard for to be a
Yeah.
creative here, and really expand. If we're talking about just being an entrepreneur in the state of California, it's not all that easy. And that's why you see a lot of companies and a lot of businesses have left. They gone to
Yeah.
Texas, or Delaware, like other states that don't charge so much income, I think income tax, but these things that like companies are moving because it's just so hard to run your business here in Cali sometimes. You say you're in Arizona.
Yes.
So what are the policies out there like with taxes?
I mean, I'm not too familiar as far as what all the policies are, just what that looks like. But I mean, there was we. So my wife and I moved out here to Arizona 2 years ago, and
Uh,
we actually lived in California
yeah.
in Corona. And
Oh,
so I mean, even just moving here to Arizona, it's just even obviously the cost of living was a huge change to where it wasn't as burdensome to okay, I have to get X amount of students to keep going, right? Or I have
right.
to, in order to keep up with paying all my taxes and just living,
Yeah.
Um, and with getting even just getting the necessary equipment. You know what I mean? To keep, like you mentioned, just to keep your business running, right? Because there's so many expenses that you have that
Mhm.
isn't necessarily talked about in the beginning when you do start your business, but just maintaining it, right? But yeah, I'm not too familiar with all the policies here in Arizona and just what that looks like. But
Yeah.
like I said, just moving here to Arizona from California, there's just it's it can be a little easier.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I imagine that, and that's why, like, I'm even, I've been talking to the guy that's actually doing my taxes. One of the things I was discussing with him was, should I form an LLC, limited liability company? He's like, well, the
Mm,
most you're going to pay for that is your $800 a year. And I'm not completely informed on all the benefits, but I would think that there are more things that I could write off. Like, you could potentially lease your vehicle to your business. Like Kevin Chong will be broke as heck. Kevin Chong's only going to make 5 grand a year, but hopefully Kevin's business, is making twice as much, if not more,
yep.
than that. And there's endless amount of opportunity, and so,
Yep.
yeah, I need to look into it more to see if that's something that's beneficial. But it is something that I'm considering because some of the churches were telling me, if you either have a DBA, which is doing business as, or
That's
an
it.
LLC, he's like, we can pay you directly and you invoice us. So essentially, you come and do the service, you invoice us as an entertainment service for the Saturday, for the Sunday, whatever, and then we pay you your direct check. If not,
Yeah.
then you would need to file to sign this new contract and become an employee. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I don't want this. I don't want California taking my taking away taxes when I'm not really benefiting from that. I don't get anything from it. Aside from, here's
Right.
what should have been $1,200 for the month, and instead you're going to get 1,020, whatever. That's still $180 that I can use for something. And sticks, bro.
Right.
I mean, I know you're not a drummer, but sticks are almost 18 $19. If you buy like some of the more recognized brands, they're anywhere between
Mhm.
15 to $20 pair, 20 yeah, $15 to $20 per pair. So I know
Right.
that I need more than one pair to play a show,
Right.
or just to have in general. So, dude, if I'm spending, if I have to buy 5 pairs of six, that's $100 right there. So it's not cheap. So that's why, like, a lot of companies, and I think a lot of, endorsing companies want to help and should help people that are using their equipment. I think it's a good show of faith to say, hey, we trust you enough that you're gonna push our brand and we're gonna push you. And this is why I was talking about the idea of supporting companies. Like, I didn't have this opportunity more than 2 years ago. This actually all just came about within the last year and a half. And really,
Right.
is because of this thing called the NAM show, which is a trading show that happens every year here in Anaheim, California. It's a 4-day show, and companies from all over the world come, and so do artists and producers and musicians, literally from Korea, China, Mexico, just globally. It's a global thing that people come to Anaheim. And so a lot of the companies that I already was using for my professional gigs and stuff were there. So I just approached them and said, hey, like, I'm doing this, I already post videos of me using your equipment. I would love to partner with you, in creating more content, so that I could push your equipment, also grow my fan base. But if any case people want to buy, hey, what mics are you using, Kev? Okay, I'm using Audix. Okay, cool. Go and buy Audix. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
What sticks are you using? Vic Firth. Cool. Go and buy Vic Firth. Like, those are the things that I think people are getting more savvy on, and they should. They should. I think it's important.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, I definitely recommend an LLC at least at the
Mhm.
minimum. Like you mentioned, right? Lucas Zambrano is broke.
Yeah.
Like the Creation Studios, they have the money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just, I mean, I started it, but I'm the one that's working for Prolific Creation Studios. You know what I mean?
Hey, man.
I mean, and I'll tell like parents all the time, like, oh yeah, like, hey, leave a review for me as your child's instructor, but working for Prolific Creation Studios, right? Not as me as my own. Like, I
Yeah.
work for them, right? I work for them.
That's great.
But I mean, and yeah. But anyways,
That's funny, man.
um,
That's great. That's great. That's really good.
how do you find inspiration in a time where Uh, what some people would call writer's block. I'll just term it creator's block of just that time that or that season. Call it what you will. Of hey, I don't necessarily feel as motivated. I don't necessarily feel as inspired as I normally would be. Is there any advice that you would give as a creative, um, and just as a creator or two, some tips or tricks that you'd recommend to do to, I guess, get you out of that funk or get you out of that groove.
Uh, so we were talking about this right before we started the podcast, but a couple of years ago, I bought a drone. It was my first drone. It's a DJI Mini 2. It was only like, I think it was like $600. But I was like, man, okay, I really love, not that I specialize in it, but I love videography. I love cinematography. Like I love all that stuff. And I was already kind of diving into editing videos on, on Final Cut, for example, and pushing out, content of me drumming. But I was like, okay, I just don't want to be known as a drummer. I don't want to just be known as a musician, because typically the label is, if you're a drummer, that's all you know how to do, and you can't give any creative direction when it comes to what the keyboard player is supposed to play, or the bassist is supposed to play, or whatever, the vocalist is supposed to sing this, or because typically we don't inform ourselves, and some of it tends to be true. Sometimes, like, I don't really play a melodic instrument as much as I like to, but I know what chord sounds right. I know if you're flat, I know if you're sharp. You know what I mean? But I can't tell you, hey, you're supposed to be hitting this chord, or instead of, or this note instead of that note. I can only like hum it out to you, or hopefully
Yeah,
reference the exact chord you should play. Or if there's a chart, thankfully there's charts. This is the chord you should be playing instead of that chord. You know. But I found
yeah,
myself, I was like, okay, I don't want to just be known as a drummer. What else can I do? And for whatever reason, I was just really attracted to the idea of flying drones. I just started watching these videos, and I'm like, this is what I want. I want to start doing this. So this was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now. I bought my first drone, and I own 5 different drones. Okay.
oh wow,
Now,
yeah,
the now you would think, and this goes back to the procrastination talk we were having. You would think that, okay, almost on my, yeah, I think actually 4 drones. I'm about to buy my fifth one. You would think I would get my drone pilot license, and I still haven't gotten it, because here's the deal with the FAA. If you fly a drone for commercial purposes, meaning you hire me for your business and you say, hey, I want you to fly around my school, get aerial shots. If you do FPV, which is first person view,
mm,
if you fly within my school, I want you to create a video, a minute and a half reel for my Instagram, and I'll pay you $200. Let's just say that's what you hire me for. I was like, okay, cool. Technically, by law, I'm supposed to be licensed. I'm supposed to have what we call the Part 107 license, remote pilot license. Okay, if I'm getting paid for whatever it is. Now, personally, I haven't done that. I haven't sought to get my license, and I was like, why am I not doing this? Why am I? What's stopping me from expanding my horizons of just being a drummer, or just offering another service that I could do to the companies that I work for. So what I did
right,
was, I when I would do these corporate events, a lot of them were these beautiful locations. I'm talking about by the beach, Newport Beach, Laguna Beach. Sometimes we were hired to go to Cabo a couple of years ago. So what I offered, I said, you know what? I'm not only going to play drums for you, I'll create a whole reel for you from the drone aspect. You can send me some of the videos that you shot, from the videographer, and we can combine it and make a whole reel. Like, here's aerial shots of where we were, because a lot of the times, man, doing touring, doing music, you get to visit these locations, man, that are absolutely stunning. Some of the theaters are incredible. Some of the outside venues, the places you get to go on someone else's dime is incredible, man. And I like to
right,
document. Yeah, I love to document all that stuff. So I was like, why am I not expanding my horizon? Like, what's stopping me from doing it? And a lot of the
right,
times, it's that self criticizing. It's like, well, people are just not going to like it. That's what's stopping me. People are not going to like it. People are not going to be on board. And really, if you go back to the Sean Cannell thing, with his videos, who cares?
yeah,
Maybe that those 3 people are not going to like it, but the other 7 are. So that's already the majority there. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So a lot of it,
yeah,
that was me pushing myself to, like, you know what, let me expand on this. So a lot of the times, even on my social media and the stories, that's what I'll share. I'll share like reels that I created, from a couple months ago. I was in New York or Hawaii or whatever, and I just post them. And people are like, dude, this is so awesome. This is great. And I'm like, how can I use this creatively? And so what I did a vlog of the tour last year, and I combined aerial shots of every location we went to, essentially every theater that we played at. I made a 20-minute vlog, and I said, for example, we were in I think it was in Modesto, CA. We were at Sororian Theater, a beautiful location. I went out and I shot aerial shots of the location, city views and stuff for about 30 minutes. And then I included a video of me playing with the artists, me vlogging. Here I am with the artists. Here I am with the singers. I would go to each musician. Hey, how do you feel about today's gig? Oh man, I feel great. That's awesome. Cool. Cut to the next clip, and here we are, at Sororian Theater, and then there's an aerial shot. So I would like to make it creative in that way, so that people are not just, it's not just the inside of the theater that you're seeing. Here's the outside too. It looks cool, whatever. So that's what really like pushed me to do it. And it's like the fear of not being scared if somebody's going to criticize my work, or if it's constructive criticism, by all means, man, I'm going to take it. But I'm naturally not a pessimistic person. And this is something that, it's just kind of always been a part of my personality. And thankfully, well, I haven't talked about her much, but my fiance, she's a behavior analyst. And so, she went to school for psychology, and now, she's working on getting her BCBA. And one of the people that we love to listen to is this clinical psychologist by the name of Jordan Peterson. And this guy,
Um,
man, I'm actually okay. So, dude, I'm gonna go see him next month. I bought VIP tickets to go see him at YouTube Theater, which is kind of crazy because it's kind of surreal because I've played at YouTube Theater. I was there last year in Inglewood in November, with Anna Barbara. We played there, and so, I'm like, it's kind of surreal. Like, man, I'm not just attending there as a my first slot of being there was not just as was just as a player, but now I'm going as a visitor, and Jordan gets to be there, and so it's kind of cool. So one of the things that we love about him is the advice that he gives, man, and one of the things that he shares, is like, what what amount of you are you not exposing to other people that you should? I think I'm kind of
mm,
paraphrasing what he's saying, but essentially it's like, what amount of good things exist in you that you feel like outweigh the bad, or whatever the negative aspects of your life that you might say, yeah, I'm not the best in this, the best in that. But what amount of personality traits do you currently have that you could be sharing with others that people need to hear? The love, the grace, the positivity, the encouragement. What's stopping you from that? Is it the fear of the people criticizing you? Is it the fear of being wrong? And one of the things he just said on another podcast with this guy named George, he was talking about, I think he was saying, when people ask a question, you're exposing yourself to ignorance, because typically when you ask a question, you don't know the answer. Hopefully that's the case. But you get to learn by somebody else's experiences, by somebody else that actually has, an aspect that you might not have known about, from their
right,
perspective. So I
right,
think what it comes down to, man, when it comes down to exploring different creative outlets, it's stopping the fear that no one's gonna like that part of you, and no, and everybody already had labeled you as Kevin only plays drums. I don't only play drums. I did a podcast show for 2 years. I know, yeah, I record drums, but man, I can fly drones too. I can edit videos for you. Those are services that I offer. That it's like, that's a creative. You're just on a constant journey of learning, of expanding, of growing. Like, those are things that no one's going to take away from you unless you stop yourself. And that's
right,
where the self procrastination comes in, the self doubt. But man, the Bible says in Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That's if you're a believer, and you're a man of faith or a woman of faith,
right,
nothing's going to stop you. So,
right. Right. No, yeah. That's awesome. And I think one of the things I want to touch on is, you mentioned, just from paraphrasing, Jordan Peterson, is not only just like how much is a person not seeing of you, but how much are you exposing yourself, especially on your platform, right?
mm, mm,
Um, Working with youth, you see, people like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, like, why? Well, I just saw, I'm not going to name any names, but I just saw them do this dance, so I'm going to do the dance right
mm,
on TikTok. Or they made this little clip, and I was like, okay, like you're only seeing the quote unquote positive or good, right? Like, oh yeah, they're all on these vacations and in these beautiful countries, these beautiful cities. It's like, okay, what's going on behind the scene?
right.
Um, the recent conversation that I had with one of the teams was like, they were talking about a perfect relationship. I'm like, well, what's a perfect relationship to you? Well, it's this and that, and I saw this person doing this for his girlfriend, and he gave her flowers every day, and this and that, and I'm like, okay, but do you know what goes on behind the scenes?
Mm.
Well, no. Well, you don't know, but they could have had an argument, the night before.
Right.
right? And you're just focusing on this and comparing, your 15-year-old relationship with this,
Right.
person that's only showing you the good. And one of the things that I really do appreciate about Jordan Peterson is, um, he shows, you know so much vulnerability, which
Right.
I think is hard for a guy, because of our egos, of just showing that on, not just, talking to a person, but just on somewhere where, millions of people can see.
Mm.
And one of the things that really got me hesitant to even doing starting a podcast was like, well, what if someone asks me something, or we're talking about a subject that I don't like, and I feel like I'm going to get angry and, get hot headed, and, just, I don't want people to see that. And I had to come to the point where it's like, okay, like if that happens, like first of all, be level headed, don't just, act out an emotion. But and I think Sean Campbell talks about this too. Let that person see who you are. Let them hear your ums. Let them hear
Mm.
let them hear that moment of silence of you thinking about it, right? Not just answering,
Yeah.
but let them see you cry. Let them see your emotion, right? Not just just sitting there and be like, okay, okay, or
Yeah.
yeah, sure,
Yeah.
but like actually like interact, right? And I think, and again, like Jordan Peterson just does an amazing job of that, of how what a man can be, right? Not
Right.
necessarily what we're told we should be, but what we can be. And just taking it a step further for those that do want to leave some type of legacy behind through social media, through YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, for how much longer that's around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of showing every side. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you touched on that, and it's inspiring to see how you have taken those steps to really show you who you are, and not just as a drummer, but as a videographer, and just taking those steps of showing your talents and different aspects, and not just drumming, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and back to the well, not back, but talking about Jordan, man, like that guy, he helped, honestly, even just my relationship with my fiance. We've been together up to the point of being engaged. We got engaged December of last year. We were together for over 7 years, you know. And and so one of the things, man, that my fiance is, she's an extremely empathetic person, right? Um, and I didn't understand that concept for a long, long time. And even then, there's still moments, because I'm not perfect, that I don't understand all of the aspects of empathy, but I have to be willing to put myself in the shoes of others. Where a lot of the times I'm thinking, if Kevin were handling this, this is how he'd do it. This is how you go about
right,
it. And that's the right way to go about it. That's what I'm thinking. And like, and she would tell me, no, that's not the way. That's not the way. Put yourself
right,
in the, you don't know the experiences that other people have gone through. And the stuff that they've endured in their lives, as to why they're the way that they are. It takes a long
right,
time to
yeah,
change those type of things. And so the advice that he would give, man, just and 12 rules of life, amazing book. I'm much more of I like to listen more than I like to read, honestly. So I
yeah,
bought the Kindle version, and so I would listen to it on my drives to these gigs, an hour and a half here, an hour and a half there, And so all the advice that he would give, man, he even talks about taking, when you, as a married couple, for example, taking at least once a week where you're talking to your spouse, your significant other, about an hour and a half a week, and you discuss all the good things, all the bad things. What's going on with you this week, babe? Like what do you have going on? What do you focus on? What are you stressed about? Like what
yeah,
do you need my support in? Maybe more so than in other specific categories, whatever. So a lot of it
right,
was extremely helpful for me because I'm not married yet, but I know I'm gonna be. And I know that I need to be there for my wife, eventually the mother of my children, when we hope, God willing, we have kids, but
yeah,
it was extremely helpful for me to learn about myself, learn about masculine traits, learn about feminine traits, and learn how they coincide with each other and how you can complement your partner. And even as far as going with, when you're arguing, you're not arguing towards each other, you're arguing to figure out the solution to that problem,
yeah,
instead of defeating one another. A lot of people think it's when you're arguing with another person is to put you down, or or vice versa, to put the other person down. It's not about that. Why would I want to live with a defeated person who I'm above
right,
her all the time? That's not, we can't be equally yoked in that way. And so a
Right.
lot of it was just he very much inspired me, man, to pursue more about learning about myself, and learning about the things that I was just like, yeah, this is just the Latino way of going about it, even the way,
Yep.
parenting and all these different aspects. It's like, dude, like you're just shown a certain way. And God bless my parents, man. Like I love my dad. I love my mom. My dad passed away 2017. And I mean, like, dude, like I miss him every day. But I keep all the good things that he taught me. I keep all the life lessons, the devotionals. He would sit me down with the rest of my brothers. I have two brothers, older brother, older sister, younger brother. And we would sit down in our living room, and he would give devotionals for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Honestly, he loved to talk, but everything he was sharing was about the Bible, was about things that I needed, and God knew that I needed all those things because, man, when I find myself in a predicament, when I find myself in a situation where I feel discouraged, I feel fearful or anxious or whatever, I turn to the Word of God. I turn to the source of all sources, and for me that's where I
Yeah.
find encouragement. But I also recognize that God has given the wisdom to these people that went to school, to these people that studied, medicine and got their doctorate or masters in psychology. And it's like, man, these people know more than I do. Why am I not learning? Why am I choosing to be stubborn? Is it an ego thing? Is it a masculine thing that I'm just like, no, I don't need to learn? And that's why I'm talking about humility being at the forefront of all the things that we do, because we're never going to know everything. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so Jordan is a huge inspiration of mine, man. And yeah, I'm glad we share. I mean, we share a lot of things in common, but him being another thing, man, it's awesome to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kevin, for giving us time and being able to talk about your journey. As we conclude this episode, can you kind of tell our audience, what you have planned, what you're currently working on, and just things to look out for?
Yeah, yeah, man. So I first of all, I have a website that everybody can go to. It's literally sirkevinchong.com. I think if you just search it up that way, you'll see SIRKEVINCHONG.com. You can check out some of my work there, former podcasts. I'm working on putting my YouTube videos together to also share to that page. You can also, if people need drum sessions or me to do drum recordings for them, I do it either here from my studio here at home, or I can go to them, if they're in SoCal, hopefully not all the way like in Oxnard or whatever, but like if they're somewhere around like the Inland Empire, Orange County, or LA County, I'll go out to them. But I'm working on putting that together. There's going to be a lot more content coming out within the next couple of weeks, because I'm finally finishing up making sure the drums sound right for these videos. Doing that. I'm working on getting my remote pilot license, hopefully within the next month and a half. So if people need services, for drone videos, even if you're trying to do a promo video, whatever, I can come out and shoot that. So again, if it's around the area, I am teaching, privately as well. So people, kids or young individuals that want to learn, or if you're 60, 70, who cares? You want to pick up a pair of sticks, by all means, I teach as well. So, I'm doing that. Yeah. And then if you are actually a little bit too late to say this, because we finished Food and Wine Festival at Disney on the 20th. And so I was going to invite people. If you have a pass, you can come and check out the band there. But really, you won't be able to, because by the time, when is this coming out? Is it coming out tomorrow or Friday? Or
This weekend, Saturday.
yeah, so Saturday is the last day, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, again, yeah, I'm dude, like, by all means, my social media, I'm sure I can give you the links and all that so people can check out if they'd like, but yeah, man, feel free to reach out for whatever inquiries you might have, and thank you again to you, Lucas, and also to Israel, Dr. Israel Chambi. I don't know too much about him. I teach his daughter, Giselle, on Tuesdays at the school, and she just told me, yeah, he's a neurosurgeon. I'm like, that's a first for me. I've never taught somebody whose dad was a neurosurgeon. Like, I feel so underqualified, even though I know,
Right.
I don't know if he knows anything about music or not. But I'm just like, man, when you just hear somebody's like that, oh man, it's just crazy. But
I know he
yeah.
plays handballs.
Oh, nice. Well, there you go. There you go. Yeah. I mean, at least we have the Peruvian thing in common. So, and my
Right there, you
encouragement, hey, my encouragement for your viewers and listeners, man, if you haven't had Peruvian food, you do not know what you're missing. Yeah, I mean, ceviche mixto, lomo saltado, arroz chafe de pollo, chorros a la man, Inca Cola. Have you had Inca Cola?
I have. It's
Okay.
really good. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I don't encourage drinking it every day, but man, a cold one sounds pretty nice right now. Pretty hot in here. So, but anyway, thank you, Lucas, for your time, man. I really appreciate this and just for reaching out, man.